user group session. We've got some exciting content for you guys today, and some great speakers, Sean and Anna, and so we'll introduce them later. But in the meantime, while you're here, we've got a Slack, basically a link to our Slack. So feel free to scan that and join. We'd love to continue the conversation on the side. So, solicit feedback for your visit. Reach out to other community members. Excited to have that as an option for us. So, take a second and join that when you get a chance. And then, Ojo, are you driving, or Blake? Next slide. So just a reminder, so since this is our second user group session, just wanted to give you guys a heads up as to who we all are. So Ojo, Blake, and I, we're leading this with Rui as our mentor. As you see us on LinkedIn or any of the other socials, feel free to connect. I'm more than happy to connect and get your guys' perspective and build out this amazing community. So, and then as I mentioned today, we've got some great content. So this is, in case you haven't figured this out, this is officially the welcome portion of the meeting. We'll hear first from Anna and then from Sean, and then we'll have some basic details about the logo contest we've got, so that we can get some retail branding, and then we'll wrap the session. And then if you go to the next slide, so as you're listening to this, as you're participating, feel free to interact with us on the socials using the hashtag retail tug. Share what you learned. What did you like? What are you excited to see next time? Any projects. So if you're involved in any of the community projects, Makeover Monday, Workout Wednesday, any of Back to Biz Basics, or whatever the case may be, share it. Share it with that hashtag retail tug. We'd love to see it, and get that participation there. And then if you go to the next one, so that being said, our next session will be in January, on January 23rd. This is going to be specifically, we're going to be talking through some of the Data Plus TV. One of the things that I have found that has worked for me over the past couple of years has been participation in community projects. Even though they aren't necessarily retail related or consumer goods related, they have been very good opportunities for me to broaden my skill set. And what I end up finding that the skills that I'm learning in those sessions actually carry over to the day-to-day. And so this is a great opportunity to get outside of our retail mindset and look at a data set that is a little bit broader, and you can kind of get some ideas from the broader community. But ultimately what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing a special Data Plus TV edition of our tug next January, and specifically would love to see work that you guys are doing. So feel free to come with your content and your visits, and we'd love to share those and get feedback. And if you go to the next one, Ojo, I think you're up.
Awesome. Thank you. We have our logo and the banner contest, but that's going to be extended more towards the end on that. We have amazing speakers today, Sean and Anna. We're going to start with Anna and then switch over to Sean. Anna, take it away.
Thanks, Ojo. Okay, so let me know first, I'm going to share my screen. I have to be honest, I recently bought a laptop because my laptop is just the slowest ever. You'll see it. Unfortunately, the new laptop, I can't use it because it's a Mac and my code only runs on Windows. And I know it was a bit of like shooting myself on the foot right there, but I'm not going to go into why I needed to buy that one. But anyways, let's see. I hope you guys can see my screen now. Let me know once you are able to see it.
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, you can see the infinity mirror.
The inception window.
Okay, so I'm going to start first just talking about why I created this code. Probably you might have seen that I created a video with Tableau Tim on the whole like reasons why I created this code, but in short, it was a way for me to document all the calculated fields that I had created once I had been working on a very complex dashboard that every few months some of the requirements changed, and then my LODs had to change and incorporate new dimensions into them. And then it got to a point in which it was quite hard for me to follow the logic of all my calculated fields. So I just wanted to have like all of the calculations in one single place. So this is how I first started with the code, which is some Python code that you will start seeing here. It's well, this is a Jupyter notebook, but if you're not familiar with Python, this is just like a user interface in which you can run the code and then also see the outputs of the code right below it. And it's very used in like data analysis and data science. But if you want to see like the actual code and how to run it, then I would say you can go into GitHub. That's my code repository. So that's where all my code is stored online. So you can download it. And then if you follow the README file, it'll show you how you need to set up your files and folders so you can run it. But basically, so the whole reason of me having this code was so I could extract all my calculated fields and also default fields, as I mentioned before, into an Excel file and then into a PDF file. So for example, here, this is a bit of the results that I got from analyzing one of Blake's Tableau dashboards from his Tableau public profile. And so here you can get each of the fields that he has created. You can see if they're string or booleans. You can actually also get the actual formula for them. And then also in the last column, you can see the data source that he was using, because on his Tableau dashboard, he was using 3 different data sources. So everything will just be outputted in one single place. But even with having this, it wouldn't let you know how one field depended on another. So for example, if I wanted to say, okay, we have the 3 viewers, subcategories, inputs, field. So that I would have to go into the code and see, okay, actually the formula is quoting the assignee and the viewer name fields. But then I would have to sort of create a mental map of this in my mind. So then that was my second iteration of the code. I said to myself, maybe there's a better way of representing this. I initially started representing this myself using like a sort of PowerPoint presentation and just adding like let's say like rectangles with the names of the formulas and then drawing arrows and then following the whole logic. But I wanted this to be automated, not manual. So I came up with the idea of putting all of this into a mermaid diagram. So mermaid will just be a sort of, I think it's a JavaScript based HTML. Yeah, I hope I'm not inventing terms, but library. So it's going to let you create some. Okay, so here you'll see when I'm highlighting, you can create some syntax, so some mermaid syntax, and then the mermaid library is going to interpret that and show it to you as a actual diagram. So from here, when I was saying to you guys, let's see, for example, the S3 viewers categories inputs calculation depends on the assignee and the viewer name, which I am gauging from the formula. Now you can actually see it here all in a very visual way. So this is the sort of the lineage diagram that shows how each calculated field or each default field all feed into one another when you keep on creating calculations. So from here, if I click on the S3 viewers categories inputs, you can quickly see that this one depends on the assignee and also on the viewer name, because those arrows are going directly into that one. And then I can also see that it also depends on the S2 list of viewers categories. So if I go into the code, then of course I see there's a minimum of that field. So yep, there's a dependency there. So luckily I haven't invented anything. But yeah, that's in a nutshell, I would say that's what the code is. I would want to know if you guys are following me okay up to here, or if there's any specific questions you have, or if there's anything that you want me to go into in more detail.
Following well. Okay, everything's good. Do you have anything else to share?
Like well, and this is exactly my point. So I can actually show you how to run this. So I can download a Tableau file and run it myself, and then you'll see how the outputs are generated. But this is where I'm asking, like, do you want me to go into that, or do you want me to go more into how like the code works? Up to you.
No, I feel, Anna, given the work that you have done, I feel there is value in doing end to end. Like if I were to use your code set that's already on Git, how would I go step by step and then analyze a workbook that I'm interested in? Say in a world where I have received a workbook from someone at work, which I don't know much about, how should I go about using this tool? That would be very helpful. Thank you.
Okay, no worries. So for that, let me just comment out one little line of code that I created before this session, because I was looking at Blake's code, going into running the code mode, so putting my glasses on. Let's then go into someone's profile, and I already have Blake's one here. So Blake, I don't know if you remember any of the dashboards that you've created that are heavy on calculations that you can maybe share with us so I can download that one.
Of course, yeah. I think the best one for this demo, I mean, any of the Workout Wednesday ones will have a handful of calculations, as Sean probably knows. But this is probably a great choice here.
Okay, so I'll just then go and download your actual workbook. And then this is going to be, I'm getting your TWBX file. So that's basically the Tableau workbook packaged file. And I'm going to go now into the inputs folder, and I'm going to save it there. Just before I do that, I'll move the one that I already did before into another folder. Otherwise, it's going to not know which one we want to run. So I'll just save it there. And for us to see the structure of this folder, so what I have here is my Tableau calculation export folder, which has, this one is linking to my Git. So from here, you will have the Jupyter notebook for the Tableau calculation extractor. And you have two options, either with the mermaid or without the mermaid. Mermaid is basically the whole diagram that gets produced. And it will actually really get produced in this way, so not in such a fancy format as you can see it, because here I'm using the mermaid chart editor. It's a free online editor that lets you create, I think, 5 projects for free, and then you can edit everything here. But when you do it automated way, it's going to generate a less, I guess, visually appealing diagram, but still it gives you the documentation that you want. So from this, I'll open the Tableau calculation extractor with mermaid. So that one I already have here. And then I guess one previous step, and I'm sorry that I'm going back and forth now, but one step would be for anyone who wants to use this code to come into the GitHub page, download the whole repo. And from there, you will see that we have the same, because this repo is mimicking or is replicating the folder that I'm showing here. But you would have to download Tableau calculation extractor with mermaid, IPNB. It's important that you also have some other files like the Excel generator.py file, because the mermaid one is going to call that other one at some point. But basically, you will have to set them up in the way that I have described here. You can just, honestly, this I made it as detailed as I could so that it's very like step by step, you can follow it. But in general, you will have an input folder, and that's where you will place the Tableau workbook that you want to analyze. And then you will also have to create an out folder, and this is where any output is going to get written into. So at the moment, I don't have any output for this because I just only saved this into the inputs folder. But now I'm going to go into the Tableau calculation extractor with mermaid Jupyter notebook. And then I'll click on run all. And whilst it's running, I'm just going to go and make a tiny bit of promotion for myself. But this is more in case of you're going to start with Python and you don't know how to download Python. and how to install some libraries. Then you can also go into my blog, which is annamilana.com. And then I've written a blog post which says or talks about how to set up your Python workspace so you can do some data analysis like we're doing today. So this will talk about how to install Jupyter Notebooks, how to install Miniconda, which is essentially a handler that will install the different libraries from Python that you will need so that you can run this whole analysis. And while I was talking, I don't know if you could see that there was this other tab that just popped up, but this is basically meaning that my whole code has already run, because once it runs, it is going to create 3 files. 1, 2, 3. Yep. So if I go now into the outputs and we check the timestamp, it's 6:19 where I'm based. So at 6:18 we have 1, 2, 3 files, 6:17, 18, 18. So one is in Excel that I'm not going to open up right now because my laptop would probably start to puke. Sorry, but I'll open it on the PDF, because basically from the Excel, I just create a printout into the PDF. Again, all of this is automated and it's done with Python. And so when you have finished running this, you will get one table with the field names for all the fields that you have used. Again, as I mentioned before, the data types. Then on the type column, you'll see if these are default fields, meaning that those are fields that came directly from one of the data sources you were using. In this case, I guess, Blake, you were using the Superstore orders data source. And because they are default fields, then of course there's no calculation there. But if we keep going downwards, then we'll start with I'll also get the parameters that Blake has created. So they have also been extracted here. So in this case, the type column will say it's a parameter. And then if we keep going downwards, you'll go into the calculated field section, and that's where you can see the different formulas that Blake has created. So for example, in the region parameter text, he's created an if formula of if something contains something, then replace or else do this. He's also created a very nice dummy formula, and I see that just from looking at this table, I can see, Blake, that you've used it twice. So basically you're using 2 data sources, and that's why I guess you have defined the dummy calculated field twice. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah, I was hoping no one would notice that one when I built this dashboard.
This one, like the code is basically going to extract everything that you have within the file. So once it finds something that is tagged as a calculated field, it'll just come out. And I guess that the same thing happened on the is selected category 1 and 2. And then the last file that is going to be create HTML file, which by default is set to already open. And this is why, while I was talking before, there was a new tab that popped up, and this is basically the mermaid diagram that has been outputted from the whole code. So from here we can see, oops, sorry, let me go from is selected category. So I'm gonna try and find the is selected category field here, and we have it 1 and 2. So what I did with the code is sometimes, as we just mentioned, and then this was just a whole coincidence, but we found that sometimes we do create calculated fields with the same name. I think that can only be done as long as you're using a different data source, because if you are within the same data source, I think that Tableau won't allow you to. It will just like sort of force you to have a separate name. Otherwise, like it would get confused. But here, if I didn't name these 2 fields differently, then they would be created as the same box. So I added an extra layer on my code so that it would append one, like let's say a number. So it would basically differentiate between these 2 is selected category. I don't know if maybe I can create, oh my gosh, how do I create a little drawing? So if I'm just trying to basically make a a rectangle around the is selected category. Both of the fields, they're named the same. Behind the scenes for Tableau, they're not named the same though. If you see, there is an actual formula name, one that ends in 418 and the other one in 781. So this is basically the metadata that Tableau doesn't show to the users. And one of these is assigned to one of the data sources and the other to the other. But for like Blake's purposes in the front end, or in like what the user usually interacts with visually, they're named the same. But for my code, in order for them to be separated into different boxes, I did add an extra one here. So what you can see here is basically all the different calculated fields that Blake created and which ones they're depending on. For example, I think he had a parameter, I guess, p-ship, and this parameter is impacting 1, 2, 3 different calculated fields. Then if you're wondering why we have some pink rectangles, that basically means that those are default fields that came with the data source, and everything else that is not in pink is an actual calculated field that has been created, or a parameter. So for example, here we've got region, which is in pink. So that means that it's one of the fields coming from the data source, but p region must have been a parameter that Blake created for his analysis purposes. Any questions up to here?
There is one from Paul. It's a suggestion. Paul is asking, might be helpful to also get a count of how many times each calculation is used throughout the entire workbook.
That is actually quite true, and thank you, Paul, for that. I'm going to take a note of that, and I will probably integrate that into the upcoming iterations of the code. So thank you for that.
Yeah, Paul has always given good feedback. He's helped shape Tableau in his earlier days. Thank you, Anna. It has been fabulous. Great presentation. Never easy to do when you're not in your home office, when you're traveling, especially on a system that's difficult. And I've always wanted to bring this in to our audience. And thank you for your time and involvement. I've used one of the other documenting tools, but this one takes it to the next level, quite literally, and this is available for free. So I can't but appreciate your involvement and value to the data fam. Thank you.
Thank you, Ojo, and thank you everyone for your time.
Absolutely. And yeah, thank you. And I'm, partially humiliated by that dummy calculation, but also grateful to have been used in an example. So if there's anyone on this call that knows about complex calculations and crazy workbooks, I think we've got the guy here. We've got Sean Miller, a visionary and one of the leaders of the community project Workout Wednesday. So if you're ever looking for a good way to challenge yourself and your Tableau skills, Sean, live streams some of those. He does Makeover Mondays, Back to Viz Basics. The list goes on. So definitely a great guy to refer to for any of that material. Sean, I'll pass it to you.
All right. Awesome. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. All right. Let's see. So just a time check. How long do I have?
We've got a good 35 or 40 minutes here.
Okay. Very good. Excellent. Okay. Thank you so much. Okay. Let's see here. Share screen. And here we go. All right. So thank you so much. Appreciate the intro, Blake. Excited to be here with you all today. Excited, especially this is a rather new and upcoming tug, and so I'm more than happy and excited to be one of the first speakers in this tug. And I think today's topic is going to be something that really resonates with a lot of people. And if you were at Tableau conference, this is kind of an encore presentation of what I did at Tableau conference. So, but basically what we're going to be talking about today is exploratory versus explanatory dashboards, right? And helping you understand which one you should choose. And if you do choose one over the other, what are some things to kind of keep in mind? as you kind of build those. So, but before we get started, I'd like to kind of set the stage, set a premise. And I believe, myself included, that most guilty with providing our stakeholders with an exploration when really what they wanted was an explanation, right? And whenever I say stakeholders in this case, I mean whoever has asked you to build a dashboard, right? So I know I've been guilty of that. Especially, I find this to be more so the earlier on in your Tableau journey you are, because you are using the tool and you're like, look at all these amazing features that Tableau has. Like, don't you want to use all of them? And no, your end users actually don't. They want the answers. So as we kind of sit on that and let that thought marinate. As mentioned before, my name is Sean Miller. I'm a principal consultant at Concord, based here in Kansas City. I lead our Tableau practice. I'm a current and 3-time Tableau visionary. I'm also a Tableau social ambassador. I lead the Kansas City Tableau user group. So if any of you are in the Kansas City area, please hit me up and come join our Kansas City TUG. As Blake mentioned, I also am a coach for Workout Wednesday, and I also do the Data Plus Music, which is basically similar to all of the other community projects out there. Only we look at music data. So with Spotify Wrapped coming up at the beginning of December, this is a big month for music fans. So definitely be looking out for that. So you may be thinking, who may not be familiar with me, Sean Miller. That name certainly sounds familiar. Where have I heard that name before? Well, maybe you're a men's college basketball fan. Sean Miller was the Arizona Wildcats basketball coach up until 2021. Maybe that's where you've heard that name. If you're a Tom Clancy fan, you probably recall the villain in Patriot Games is also named Sean Miller. So my name has apparently been out there forever and around everything. So, but we're all Tableau users. And I would imagine that most of you have probably played around with the Superstore data set. And of course, if you look in that Tableau data source, I'm in that data source. Not only in that data source, I am the top customer by sales and have been since I think Superstore's ever been around. So that's probably why you recognize that name. So that's just a fun little trivia that I like to throw out because it's pretty unique and pretty fun. So as Blake mentioned, I do run a data to dash stream weekly on my YouTube and LinkedIn. So what you can do is, regardless of which platform you prefer, follow me, subscribe to my channel, connect with me on LinkedIn, and you'll get notified of whenever I go live or when I have an upcoming live stream. And every single Friday at 10 a.m. Central Time, I get on there, and Blake said, I go literally, as the series says, I go from data to dashboard. And we start blank and we see as far as we can get in 60 minutes. And we usually do it over the most recent Workout Wednesday challenge. And then on Tuesdays, I alternate between Makeover Monday and back to Viz Basics. So, which is pretty fun. So, all right, back to our premise. So we're going to kind of back it up a little bit. So we need to think about your stakeholders have probably come to you as the Tableau developer and be like, hey, we need a dashboard. So what do we do from here? Anytime they ask you, anytime you get this request, you need to start thinking, okay, is this going to be an exploratory dashboard or is this going to be an explanatory dashboard? Am I telling a story or am I helping people find the story, find the insights, right? Every single dashboard can fall into one of two categories, right? So we have the exploratory dashboard. I pulled this dashboard off of the Tableau Accelerator Marketplace, and some of the things. So I also don't necessarily I like to think of things differently. So kind of thinking about, if you think about the differences between the two in a way that kind of makes sense for everybody, I like to call exploratory dashboards data buffets, right? So what are some things that you can find in exploratory, or data buffet dashboards. All the filters, right? They're going to have a lot of filters, and it's almost like ad hoc filters are added anytime somebody has a different question. You allow your end users to choose their own adventure, right? Every single time they approach that dashboard, they sign in, they look at that dashboard, they're going to choose their adventure. They get to choose which filters to select. They get to choose the analysis that they would want to see. Also with that, they have to start over from scratch every single time they want to look for a new insight, right? So they've got to do a lot of the work in order to find that insight. And on the other hand, conversely, we have the explanatory dashboard. Now, with that same food restaurant style of schema, I don't like to call them explanatory dashboards. These are data platters, right? So if you think about data buffet, you have to do the work. Data platter, the work is done for you, right? So some of the things that you're going to notice on an explanatory data platter dashboard is limited filters, only the filters needed to tell the story, right? Meaning you are going to, I, as the developer, am telling you a story. And I'm going to allow you to kind of look at the different narratives within that story, but it's still focused on one thing. And as you can see at the very top of this example here, one dashboard for one question, right? So don't try and put all of the answers into one dashboard, right? Or if you can, just realize that's not an explanatory dashboard, that's an exploratory dashboard, right? So when you go to make either explanatory or exploratory dashboards, here are 3 considerations that you need to follow. Filtering. Every single stakeholder will tell you that they want to be able to filter by every dimension available, when actually what they want is they want the ability if the analysis requires it, right? So don't put more filters on than are necessary. If somebody starts to ask for more and more filters, it's probably a good time to go back to the drawing board and ask better questions of the data, right? So just kind of keep that in mind. The next thing we need to consider, and it's probably a hot take, if you will, but we do need to consider the mental capacity of our end users. We know it is, whether or not we want to admit it to ourselves, our attention spans are decreasing. They are declining, right? So before going in and building a full screen deep dive dashboard, consider the complexity of the analysis required to fully grasp and answer the questions being asked, right? And then lastly, focus, which I kind of alluded to in the last example, right? A single data set or a single request for a dashboard is going to have multiple different questions, right? And that's great, and that's fine. And a single data source can be able to answer multiple different questions. But don't try to put everything on one dashboard in one view. It's just going to confuse your users. So let's talk a little bit about each one of these in a little bit more detail here. Filtering. Let's talk about filtering a little bit. So here's that same view that we were just looking at a little bit earlier, just blown up a little bit bigger. And as you can see, this is very much an exploratory dashboard. How do we know that? What are some things that kind of clue you in on this is an exploratory dashboard? Well, right off the bat, we have 3 different questions on the same sheet, right? We've got a map, we've got some bullet charts, we've got some area charts, and the ever so popular tree bar charts. I have never made those, never seen those before. Really, really interesting. So, but what I want to draw your attention to are those filters up at the top. Let's take a deeper dive on those filters up at the top. We have current month, right? So we have 12 different months in that filter. We're also bringing back 3 years worth of data, right? In this example, in this dashboard, we've got 1 country, but your data may have many more countries. We've got 44 states that have data in it, and you also notice that bubble changed colors. We'll come back to that in a minute. We've got 10 different product lines, and we got 5 different stores, right? So think of all of those different think of all of those different filters, right? That your users have the ability to play with. And that does not even include the click to filter, the parameter actions, the highlight actions, all of those different things, right? Now, the reason that they're different colors, the pink ones are single select values, single select filters, and the purple ones are multi-select. So my question for you is, how many different filter combinations are there on that dashboard? And yes, one of the things that I used to do in a previous life before becoming a Tableau developer was I was actually a middle school math and science teacher for about a year. And so this is like right in my wheelhouse. So what you have to do in order to figure out this, you have to multiply the total number of options for each filter together. So what does that look like? That looks like this. So 12 times 3 times 1 for those multi-value select, for those single value filters. But then sigma 44 times sigma 10 times sigma 5. What is that sigma 44? Well, a little bit of a math lesson. One thing about math notation is the person writing the formula or proof or anything like that can create their own notation. In this case, sigma 44 means you have to add together all of the values between 0 and whatever number that is. So sigma 44 is 44 plus 43 plus 42, on and on down to 0. So again, being a math teacher, we got to simplify our equation. That actually now becomes 12 times 3 times 1 times 990 times 55 times 15. And so the question to the answer, how many filter combinations are there on that very simple exploratory dashboard? There are 29,403,000 different filter combinations on that dashboard. And we're asking our end users to go into that dashboard and find their insight. That's 29 million different stories that our end users could find, right? So talk about a needle in a haystack, right? How many filters are on your dashboards right now? How many times has an end user come to you and say, well, we need this filter added. Well, we need this filter. Well, we need this filter, right? You're just increasing the number of, you're just increasing the complexity of that dashboard, of finding that insight. Do you really need that extra filter? Or do we start asking better questions, right? It's similar to that, like we need to measure all the KPIs, right? Like it's very, very similar to that, right? We need to measure all the KPIs and we need to filter by everything. Well, now everything's going to get lost in translation, right? So just ask better questions of your data, right? And that's a conversation. That's a mutual conversation between you, the developer, and the person asking for the dashboard, as well as any subject matter experts in that data domain. You want an easier solution to the too many filters? This is a solution that I created for a client not too long ago that really hit home with them. And they really, really enjoyed it because it became so much easier. You think about, Tableau always puts every single filter down the right sidebar, right? Or maybe you put them all across the top, right? It can be kind of confusing after you select, 15 different filters, right? So what I did is I actually said, okay, well, let's just make the filter selection a sentence, right? Let's make it read like a sentence. So I want to compare total units by country for all regions, trended weekly, right? If you put 15 different filters on, that becomes a run-on sentence. And again, being a teacher, we don't like run-on sentences, right? So keep it concise, keep it efficient. All right, so mental capacity. Let's talk about mental capacity a little bit. So what we need to consider when we talk about mental capacity and analytic complexity as it relates to exploratory versus explanatory dashboards. So with exploratory dashboards, you're definitely going to see higher complexity in your analysis, in the types of visuals that you're looking for. Explanatory dashboards, we're going to make it easier to understand, right? Hopefully, we're going to, again, provide the answer as simply as possible. Exploratory dashboards, you're definitely going to see things more granular. So you're going to need to have things like the sales transaction lines in your exploratory dashboard, but you're not maybe necessarily going to need that in your explanatory dashboards, right? So it's going to be less granular and more aggregated, if you will. Exploratory dashboards, again, as we've talked about, as we kind of hit home just a little bit ago, in exploratory dashboards, you're definitely going to have more dimensions, more filters, because you're trying to find that insight. Where in explanatory dashboards, again, we want to give you the optimal amount of filters to investigate the narrative within the story we're trying to tell. Exploratory dashboards, I like to find that they're going to be a little bit more statistical. You're going to be looking at correlations. You're going to be looking at interdimensional relationships and those types of things. And where explanatory, it's going to be more like rank, comparison, and trends, right? Not that you can't have a mix of both, but again, I think if you were to try and bucket those things, I think that's what you would find. So let's take a look at this dashboard, right? Again, this is a different view of the dashboard we just looked at. But I bet if I were to do a eye tracking scan for everyone who ever looked at this dashboard, I would be willing to bet pretty good money that your eyes generally like to focus on the middle column and the map. One, we love maps. Humans love maps. So that's why I would put that there. And the ones in the middle are easiest to understand, right? It's bar charts. We get that. It's also right in the middle of the screen. And they take up the most data ink, if you will. But the other thing that I'd like to draw your attention to are those running trend charts. There are 3 running trend charts on this dashboard. Are they telling me the same thing? Are they telling me different versions of the same thing? Why are there 3 of them? Could I just get away with one? It confuses me. I don't want to look at them, right? So again, consider what you're asking your users to kind of take in when they look at your exploratory dashboards. So don't require more mental load than your audience is prepared or used to, right? I think that's a big one, used to, right? Because think about all they've got. While they're trying to use your dashboard, they've got email pings that are coming in. They've got Slack or Teams notifications coming in. They've probably got people walking by their desk. They've got text messages from their family and friends coming in. Like, they've got so many other things going on, and they want to get the analysis out and get on, right? Again, if you make your dashboards overcomplicated, harder to use, you may cause undue analytic fatigue, right? And then this is something that we always deal with. I know we do because I deal with it on a everyday basis. Are they asking to download the data to Excel because they have what they need? Or are they just too overwhelmed with what's in front of them and they just want to resort to something that's more familiar to them, right? And they'll just do the analysis on their own, because it kind of alludes back to that first question. They were looking for an explanation and we gave them an exploration, and they're just like, I'll just take this data and I'll just get the answer myself. And that leads us to our final thing about focus, right? So take advantage of the requirements that you gathered. Hopefully you did the requirements gathering. And you asked your end users, your stakeholders, what are the questions that you're trying to ask? You said you wanted a dashboard. What do you want that dashboard to do? What answers are you looking for? Right? And you will likely get several questions posed within a data set scope. And what we want to do is we want to force the user to focus on one question at a time. So here is a completely made up example of a dashboard request that you might find in a retail organization. Which subcategories are outperforming targets or quotas? Which customers are spending more? How is our discount strategy performing? All of these are awesome questions, very valid questions. All of them can be created with one data source. But we don't want to force them to try and answer those on one screen. So we know that we've had, before, maybe we'll have, when you think about dashboard UI, Tableau has the tabs at the top. So you might break this out into separate tabs, or you might have like a sidebar of buttons that you might choose to select. But one thing that I've started doing more that clients, customers, stakeholders are really, really appreciating is I tie back those questions that they asked into the dashboards. So this is something that I actually built for a client, similar, where I actually put the questions right in the dashboard, and I used dynamic zone visibility as well as show hide containers to, what do you want to focus on, right? What do you want to answer, right? And I gave them all the filters there on the left sidebar, and they're all connected to all three of the questions. So they still get all of the same context, and they get to choose which question they want to investigate, right? So if you scan that QR code up at the upper right, that will take you to my Tableau public profile for this dashboard that you are free to download and use, reverse engineer how I set this up, and so that you can, use this in your analysis and in your workbooks. So, 3 considerations to make when you're building a dashboard. Consider filtering, right? Think about the number of filters. Think about the filter combinations, right? Again, if allowed, your stakeholders will ask to be able to filter by every single dimension, right? Regardless of whether or not they're actually going to use it. Think about the mental capacity. What can we do to provide, the most amount of information in the least time, in the least amount of time. And then lastly, focus, right? Again, a single data set can answer multiple questions. Don't try and answer multiple questions at once. Give a separate dashboard for each question. And then the great Steve Wexler, one of the authors of the Big Book of Dashboards, he has this saying. I think it's great. I think it's, and especially kind of ties into kind of what we've been talking about, that a dashboard is a terrible place to tell a story, but it is the perfect place to find the story, right? And then once you find the story, then you can kind of redesign the output of that. Now, what I would like to take a brief moment and kind of talk about is Tableau Pulse, and how does Tableau Pulse fit into all this, right? We talked about exploratory versus explanatory. We're talking about, filtering and, mental capacity and focus and all that. I think Tableau Pulse has, if adopted correctly and efficiently and effectively, Tableau Pulse has the potential to give our stakeholders the answers to the questions that they ask. Give them high-level overviews, right? They want KPI dashboards. They want, they want to know what the number is, and they want to know level 1, maybe level 2 click-through, right? Which is what Tableau Pulse is. That is its bread and butter, right? And that's where I think the future of Tableau and analytics is headed. And I'm excited that Tableau Pulse is around, because it's going to allow us Tableau developers to get back to doing what Tableau does best, which is analysis at the speed of thought, right? I'm sure all of us have been in a workbook with a data source, and I don't even publish it, right? Because I don't need, not every single analysis needs to be published, right? And my best Tableau flows, not prep flows, but a flow of analysis. When I'm done with it, I look back at my workbook and I've got 15 calculated fields called calculation 2, copy 3, and I've got 8 unnamed worksheets, but I've got the answers that I need, right? And that's what I think Tableau Pulse is going to allow us to get back to, is stakeholders are going to be able to see that number. They're going to be able to say the level 1 and level 2 click through of why that number is off. And then they're going to be like, okay, this still doesn't seem right, but I don't have, I don't have the answers to that. I need my analysts to go figure out that 3rd and 4th level click through. And that's what we're going to be doing more of if Pulse really kind of takes off and is adopted. So really excited for that, for the future. And with that, go forth and viz. And if you take a QR code scan of that QR code there, that will take you to a PDF version of this deck that you can download and share with your teams internally. And reach out, please reach out if you have any questions, or if you want to dive deeper on something, or if you want to see how a Tableau visionary can help you and your organization.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sean. And I think if we've got a few minutes for any questions in the chat, I'm sure both Sean and Anna would be happy to answer anything that might be on anyone's mind out there. I know, Sean, I've got one question for you as we think about gathering requirements before you jump into that dashboard development. Yep. Do you tend to jump straight into Tableau after getting those requirements, or do you do any wireframing or sketching beforehand usually?
Yes. So that is actually something that is very important. Is absolutely, I have to figure out. I have to take those. Like we actually have a document that we fill out. Like it's an interview survey that we fill out for all the requirements, and then what we do from there is we'll actually take that document and we will interpret it into a dashboard. And yes, we do use wireframing, prototyping. We personally use Figma here to kind of build all that and build that out. And then essentially what you get is you get a version of a dashboard that is more or less exactly what you need to go build, because you've gotten sign off. Doing the wireframing process is you're not spending a lot of time like figuring out, you want this to be a lollipop chart, or you want this to be a bar chart, or you want to, you actually want to see this line chart with, year over year comparison. It's a lot easier to iterate through some of those changes than it is to actually go and develop. And then once you have that signed off wireframe, then you can just go. You can move a lot quickly and a lot more efficiently as a Tableau developer, because exactly you're building to the spec. And it also gives time while we're going through that iterative process. You hand off another copy of that requirements dashboard to your data engineer or the person who's going to be gathering that data, and be like, I need a table that's going to do this, right? And so that wireframing time gives them enough time to hopefully put together a table that you can then start putting together. But yes, wireframing is paramount.
Fantastic. I want to bring out a question from Suvajit, but before I do that, thank you. Fantastic presentation, Sean. I knew you'd crush it. And thanks for touching upon the points of why there's a difference between explore and explain. It's very widely talked about in the data fam, and thanks for highlighting it. The piece about Pulse, and I have my ideas about it too, was a stroke of genius. I feel explore is the first thing that we do when we get a new data set, but no one knows. There are unknown unknowns. We start with explore, and that's where Tableau shines. Find questions, answer it as you find. Ask more questions as you find answers, the why, what pair. And then once you arrive at something that your stakeholders will find value, there is an opportunity to share with them what they already knew and something new that the data is trying to tell us. From there goes the explain part, where some insights which a bunch of VPs found was helpful goes to middle management and the operations team, and that can initiate better business, lower costs, better return on investment, and to the top management once you've done that, who don't have the time or the bandwidth to go into an open dashboard. Pulse is where it shines, where all the known KPIs flash on their devices on the go.
Right.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Yep.
Subhajit's question is the number of quick filters that you would recommend allowed on a dashboard.
I don't have a hard. I knew that was going to come up. It usually always does. I don't have a hard and fast rule. What I like to bring that up just because of how quickly just to keep in mind how quickly things can get more and more convoluted and more, and also remember that every single filter on your dashboard is another separate query that Tableau has to run, right, in order to generate that dashboard. So, I'm not saying 3 is the perfect number or 5. Again, just kind of just ask the hard questions, right? Don't be afraid to push back on, well, why do you need that filter? Can it be a dashboard action as opposed to a drop down filter, or those types of questions? So I don't really have a best practice. I just have just be aware of it, just think about it, and just bring in the correct amount.
Fantastic. Then yeah, I think with that, Sean, one more thank you, and thank you, Anna, as well, both of you, for coming on, donating some time and sharing with the Retail Tug community. I do have a couple more quick announcements to share with the group here before we all take off. So Sean, if I can steal the screen share back here.
Yep.
Awesome. So first off, last time we met up, we did call out our logo and banner contest. We ended up extending that. So as you guys can see, that we don't have great branding today. We need to get a nice logo on there. Come on, shopping carts, baskets, something retail. I challenge all of you to take your best shot and submit an idea. We're planning to do some voting on that come 2025 here. So you can submit your designs through to the Retail Tug Gmail or just on our Slack, which I will share on this next slide here. But we are planning on doing Tableau swag for the winning design. So definitely, if there's ever a reason to participate, that's the reason. So yeah, with that, I want to share 2 QR codes here. The one on the left is going to take you to the RSVP for our next meet, January 23rd. And then over on the right is that QR code to join our Slack group as well and continue that conversation. And much like we did last time for our first meet, we did want to call out a king of participation in our chat. And now that this is the second meeting, I guess it's officially a tradition. But I saw Subhajit's in the chat from last time. It's good to see a returning active chat member. This time we actually want to extend that certificate over to Paul. So I went ahead and threw that slide together here. Paul, congratulations. Thank you for being our standout chatter today, our chat hero. And hopefully we can see you all back next time and award somebody else as well. But much deserved. And Paul, I'll pass this along to you via Slack as well. So we'll get that certificate delivered. And with that, I think we are at time here. Again, thank you, Sean. Thank you, Anna. Very much appreciated. Hopefully we can see you around in the community moving forward.
And last but not the least, the next one, which is in January, it's going to be all about you, the Data Fam, and the community. We're doing a Data Plus TV special. So do your best work over the holidays, share it with us on our Slack channel, and then we will showcase this. You can present your work, and we can make it more about you rather than what we have right today. Breakout sessions, more on the way. Help us shape this community, make it into an inclusive, bigger Tableau user group. Speak to your friends, talk to your retail buddies, and bring them in. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. See you in January or in Slack, whichever comes first. Bye, guys.